What up everyone, welcome to BMG. It's your boy Brown Mamba. Hope you guys are doing good. So in this week's video, I have some more NBA 2K15 gameplay for you guys. Like I said in my last video, I did make the finals. I'm playing the Spurs right now. I did take game 1, which gives me home court advantage, which I am very happy about. It was a close game throughout the whole game. I missed some crucial free throws at the end, but still came on top and won the game, so I'm pretty happy going to game 2 with a win. In this week's video, I'm going to talk about NBA 2K16. I'm actually really excited for it, especially with the new classic teams that they've been announcing lately. They've announced 6 already. I think they're announcing another 6 in the next coming weeks. I believe they're announcing 2 more this Thursday. So the 6 that they've already announced, it's 2007-2008 Houston Rockets, 1999-2000 Toronto Raptors, 2007-2008 Boston Celtics, 2000-2001 Los Angeles Lakers, 2002-2003 Dallas Mavericks, and the 1999-2000 Portland Trail Blazers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every single team, the 6 teams that they've announced, and kind of talk about the rosters that they had that year and their records and some key points from that year. I'll start off with the Dallas Mavericks of 2002 and 2003. Their season record was 60-22. They actually won the first 14 games of the season, which was only one shy of the world record of 15 wins, which is held by Houston Rockets in 1993 and 94. They did make the NBA finals, conference finals that year, but they lost to Spurs. It was a kind of a weird situation because they beat the Kings in the second round. Chris Webber did have a season-ending injury, so they did have that advantage in beating the Kings. Because I believe Mike Bibby and Chris Webber were doing really well that season. So yeah, they did beat the Kings, but it was with the because of the injury to Chris Webber. Nick Van Exel actually scored 36 points one game and another 40 points that same series. So he picked up his game that series against the Kings. But then against the Spurs in the conference finals, they were doing pretty decent until Dirk got injured. He actually had a knee injury that ended his season right there. Even though they still had Steve Nash, Mike Finley, and those guys, Dirk is still the captain of the team, and they had no chance against the Spurs. So they ended up losing to the Spurs that year in the conference finals. Some key people on that roster is Dirk Nowitzki, obviously. Steve Nash was on that team as well. Nick Van Exel, like I mentioned. Sean Bradley, Michael Finley, he was doing pretty good. I think he averaged almost 20 points that season, 19.3. Dirk averaged 25.7, and obviously Steve Nash averaged 17.7 with like 7 assists a game. It was a pretty good team, and I'm pretty excited to play with these guys. The Dirk and Steve Nash combo was not the best, but one of the top combos that it's fun to watch and obviously it's fun to play with. The second team on my list, it's the 1999-2000 Portland Trail Blazers. Their record was 59-23. They finished second in the NBA Pacific Division. They actually lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Lakers, who ended up winning it all. They lost 3-4 to the Lakers. The cool thing about that whole series was that so Portland had beat Minnesota 3-4, and then they also beat Utah 4-1, and they were down, I believe, 3-1 to the Lakers, but they forced a Game 7, so they won 2 straight. They were actually up by 15 points in Game 7 with 10 minutes left in the game, but Kobe's on that team, so obviously Kobe started a pretty big comeback, and within 10 minutes, they erased that 15-point deficit and ended up winning Game 7 thanks to Kobe's comeback, and they won 89-84. Everyone knows I'm a big Kobe fan, so I'm always going to say it was Kobe who did all the good things. But yeah, that's huge though, right? Like, you're up by 15 points in Game 7, you have 10 minutes left in the game, and you end up losing. That really must have sucked. And another weird thing is that ever since that loss to the Lakers in 2000, 99-2000, they never won a series after that until Damian Lillard hit that three-pointer with like 0.9 seconds left to beat Houston 99-98 in Game 6 last year. So, I guess, they did so good that year in 99-2000 that they were beating they won the first 2 rounds so easily against like Minnesota and Utah, but Lakers really stunned them with that Game 7 win, and then after that they just never really won a series until Lillard came in. And you know what, like, now that Aldridge has left, I think it's going to be even more rebuilding for Portland. So they've been basically rebuilding since 2000, and now they got screwed because they did have a pretty good lineup, like Lillard and Aldridge, and even Matthews was on that team. But now he's gone. Uh, LaMarcus is gone, so it's just Lillard by himself. So we'll see what they could do. So some key players on that team were Rasheed Wallace. That guy was really good. Obviously Pippen, Stoudemire was on that team too. Brian Grant, Bonzi Wells, and Jermaine O'Neal. I think it was his first or second year in the league for Jermaine O'Neal. So he didn't do too much, but he obviously became a pretty good player, especially on Pacers. But yeah, that was like one of Pippen's few last years, and he played really well too. I think he only averaged like 12 points, but overall the team was such a good team that they did really well during the seasons, and even the playoffs. Like I said, the first 2 rounds they did really well, but when you're playing Kobe and the Lakers, you know, you're probably going to lose, especially with Shaq on that team. The next team for the classic teams is the 2007-2008 Boston Celtics. Their record for that year was 66-16. They finished first in the Atlantic Division. They actually ended up winning the NBA Finals that year as well. One of the key things about that year was that was the first year that the Big Three were formed, with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Mr. Paul Pierce. I'm not a big fan of, you know, getting superstars and all-stars together and making this big team, big superstar team, and winning championships. But I felt like when Boston did that, it was okay because, you know, Garnett was at the end of his career, Paul Pierce was at the end of his career, and so was Ray Allen. They weren't in their primes at all. Like, they were just past their prime. So them doing it at that time to win a championship was okay. Like, you know, when Miami Heat did it, I wasn't a big fan. I actually hated it because Wade was just about to finish his prime. Bosh was in his prime, and LeBron still is in his prime. So that wasn't cool, and that kind of ruined the league. But when Celtics did it, it was okay, I guess, in a way. But anyways, that's when the Big Three was formed, and they did beat the Lakers in the finals to win the championship. Garnett did win Defensive Player of the Year as well. Another cool fact about that playoffs run by Boston that year was that they've actually played 26 postseason games, which is the most ever. So I think they had 2 Game 7s, first and second round, that it took Game 7s for them to win. So that was kind of a cool fact. So yeah, like I said, on that team is obviously Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. There's also Perkins was on that team. Rondo was on that team. I think it was his second year. Glenn Davis, that was his rookie year, I think. Sam Cassell was on that team. He only played like 55 games. Tony Allen was on that team. Yeah, so it was a pretty solid team. The next team I'm going to talk about is the 2007-2008 Houston Rockets. Their record was 55-27. They finished 3rd in the Southwest Division. They lost the first round of the playoffs 2-4 to Utah Jazz. Houston Rockets was a really good team because they did have Yao Ming and T-Mac. That year was kind of a strange year because Yao did get injured close to the end of the year, and they had no Yao Ming in the playoffs. Even though T-Mac is really good, but you know, you still need that big man to kind of help you in the post. To start the season off, they actually won 22 consecutive games. That was the 3rd longest winning streak in the NBA. T-Mac averaged around 21.6 points in that season, and he actually averaged 27s in the playoffs. I guess he had to pick it up because, you know, there was no Yao Ming, and there's a huge offense burden on T-Mac. And another thing was that they brought back Steve Francis too for that season, but he only played in 10 games, and you know, he didn't play too much, so he wasn't that effective. So yeah, on that team was Rafer Austin, Badia was on that team, Aaron Brooks, Steve Francis, Gerald Green was on that team, Bobby Jackson was on that team, Carl Landry was on the team, T-Mac, Yao, Mutombo was on that team, but he was obviously at the end of his career, so he didn't really make too much of a difference. Scola was on that team too. But yeah, T-Mac and Yao, that was another amazing combo too. That's like similar to like Shaq and Kobe and Pippen, Jordan, those type of guys. But you know, T-Mac is injury prone. Ever since he left Orlando, he was injury prone, I guess, and he was still, I wouldn't say he was in his prime, but it was at the end of his prime, I guess, and approaching, like, you know, his career ending because of all his injuries and stuff. But you know what, the few seasons he did play at Houston, it was pretty fun to watch him and Yao go at it. Especially that one game where I think he was playing the Spurs and he scored like 18 points in like 30 seconds or something crazy like that. Like, T-Mac was one of the best offensive players in the league. I still think Kobe's number 1 and Jordan's number 2 for scoring at least. And another team that I'm really excited about, it's the 1999-2000 Toronto Raptors. As you know, I'm from Toronto. So their record was 45-37. They finished 3rd in the Central Division. It was the first time they made the playoffs, so they did lose in the first round, 0-3. This is when they only had 3 games in the playoffs. They lost to the Knicks. They got swept by the Knicks, but that team was stacked though. They had like Camby, Houston, Latrell Sprewell. They had Patrick Ewing. Ewing, even though he was old, he was still averaging like 15 points and like 10 boards. So that team was pretty stacked overall. That was the Raptors' 5th season in the league. So like as a franchise, I guess. So not that much experience, I guess. And like I said, it was the first time in the playoffs too. Carter averaged 25.7 in the season, but he only averaged 19.3 in the playoffs. Usually superstars need to step up in the playoffs. I guess Carter kind of stepped down a little bit. Maybe he was just nervous, but nonetheless, Carter was amazing. Especially that year, I would say was his best year, or second best year. Maybe the year after that he did better. But yeah, that same year Vince won the dunk contest. He was just dunking on everyone that year. It was pretty crazy. And having T-Mac on that team was kind of cool too, because we didn't know like how well he was gonna be or how he was gonna turn out. But even that year, like I think he averaged T-Mac averaged 15.4 points during the season, which is still pretty good. And in the playoffs, he actually averaged more. I think he averaged like 17 points a game in the playoffs. He did step up his game. Yeah, so this team's gonna be really fun to play with, especially with Vince. His dunk is probably gonna be like at 100. So I'll be dunking on everyone in the video game, and hopefully they have a dunk off too, so you can do some cool dunks and use Vince and stuff. Finally, the last team that they've announced so far, it's the 2000-2001 Los Angeles Lakers. I've been waiting for this for a long time, because this was one of, I wouldn't say Kobe's best years, but he was really young and he was amazing even then. The Lakers' record for that year was 56-26. They finished first in the Pacific Division. They did win the NBA Finals that year. They only lost once in the playoffs, and that was to Philly in the finals. I think, honestly, I believe they lost just so they could win the championship at home. Like, because if they had won 4 straight games, they would have won in Philadelphia. So they probably wanted to lose one so they could bring it back to LA and just finish them off there. So yeah, they basically swept every team, every round, except for Philly at the end. Kobe averaged 28.5. Shaq averaged 28.7, which sucks because that's 0.02 less than Shaq. So whatever, it was still pretty good, especially considering that Shaq's so dominant and he could score basically on anyone by just posting them up. So averaging 28.5 during the season when you have Shaq on your team, I think that says a lot by itself. In the playoffs, I believe Kobe averaged 29.8 and Shaq was at 30.2. So Shaq did average more points in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, they both improved. They played better, they played harder in the playoffs, and that's why they did win 3 championships, consecutively. So yeah, that's why I'm excited to play with this game, because one, it's playing with Kobe at his young again, at his prime again, and hopefully maybe in the next year or two they release like the 2000 and like I don't know what year it was, like 2008 or 2009 Lakers when Kobe was like averaging 35 points a game. That would be pretty exciting too. Me being such an NBA fan, I love playing basketball games, and I used to be an NBA Live guy when I was growing up. That's all I used to play with my buddies. About 5 to 7 years ago, I switched over to 2K. I haven't looked back. The game's just amazing, and every year they always find a way to improve. They add some new features or do something different to kind of keep people buying the newer ones. So now that they've added even classic teams that I could relate to more so, because I grew up watching like the Raptors back in the early 2000s and watching the Lakers and cheering for these guys, and I'm sure they're gonna bring back all the Bulls teams as well, the 96, 97 Bulls. So it's gonna be fun, matching these guys up. Like I can't wait to, play the 2001, 2000 Lakers against the 94, 95 Bulls, something cool like that, like it'll be pretty awesome. So I'm really excited for this game, and I can't wait till this week to see what other classic teams they bring back. The game's going to be released in September 29th. I will pre-order my game because, if I'm going to buy it, why not pre-order it? They usually give you free stuff anyways, like VC points or something. So I'm probably going to pre-order it and hopefully pick it up when it does come out. I guess that's all for this week, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace!